Okay, that might have been a little premature, but welcome to Momentous Live, episode 73, Sandpiercer. A heck of an episode for you this evening. Some pretty cool stuff. We're looking at the International Space Station and we staying in who's going, space junk and how it's going to kill you, a 170-kilometer city in the desert, and the 411 on work from home in 2022. Hi there, I am Gray Williams.
I'm William Silver.
And I'm Tasia Custodi.
And taking a well-needed respite for once in a while. Tristan Jutra is off on vacation this week in a place where there is no internet, because if there was, he'd be here. So
he tried.
He tried, like really did. I think it was like this close to ordering a Starlink. This is kind of where I think he might have been, but yeah. We got a text.
What Gray's not telling everybody is that it's a forced vacation.
Don't come back until you're rested.
A vacation.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, on that note, how are we all doing? We were talking earlier about how it has been a hell of a week. And it's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
We got a little
Guys,
bit of a break.
It can only go up from here.
That's right. That's right. That's the optimistic way of looking at it is, you know what? If it got any worse, well, we have nothing to complain about, because really, could it? So a bit of a respite from the heat here in British Columbia. We're at a balmy, what is it, like 27, 28 degrees after being 33 on the weekend. It was we had the Pride Parade on Sunday, which I was marching in with community, which was a ton of fun, but pretty sure I lost like a third of my body weight in water. So yeah, good times. So we're gonna talk a little bit here about some space stuff. Just catching up on a few things. We do have some good news. NASA's CAPSTONE has executed a trajectory correction and is now back on path to the moon. You've probably done this before, when you're driving somewhere and your GPS is like make a U-turn here. And of course, CAPSTONE has been repositioned, so that's good news. I mean, I was fairly sure it would happen. Odds were, I think you guys were with me on this one, yeah?
Recalculating.
Recalculating.
It's always a little scary with these things, though, right? Because it's like playing pin the tail on the donkey from like 100 miles away.
Yeah, well, and that's really it. It's interesting, actually, looking at the computers that were used even in Apollo 13 to sort of recorrect. There's more power in the Apple Watch than there was in those computers on board. And anytime we launch anything into space, we're launching things that are hardened. So typically they have been through quite a bit more testing. So it's not the state-of-the-art stuff. It's the state-of-the-art stuff 5, 10 years ago that we know won't fail due to that sort of thing. But look forwards into the future, we do have a few things to look forward to. So is NASA's Moon Orbiting Space Station. And this is kind of an interesting thing to think about, because right now we have the ISS, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But Lunar Gateway basically gives us, support missions on and around the moon. And the moon's kind of interesting from a couple of perspectives. One, it has plenty of helium-3 on it, so if we're looking at, using fusion reactors up there, it's got the fuel. And also the gravity is 1/6 of Earth's, which is going to be fantastic, because as we get older and put on weight, it's going to make life a whole lot easier. That's really what I'm looking forward to, is just, in my elder years, not having to worry about that too much and just chilling out on the moon. So these are some of the things that we can look forward to. But one of the things I did want to talk about is that Russia says it'll leave the ISS after 2024. So they're bailing on the longstanding partnership, or at least they're saying so, which is interesting, because right now, a good chunk of the International Space Station is run on Russian technology. They've already famously threatened to leave the ISS due to the conflict in Ukraine and people supporting the Ukrainian people. And it's interesting, because right now, if you need to get off of the ISS, in a lot of cases, you're using a Russian Soyuz capsule. So this one's kind of a curious one, because without the ISS, they don't actually have a major presence in space. So, I mean, we're not really a political pod here, but is this the Russians playing hardball, or is this the Russians playing poker?
Poker.
Poker, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, like the second that this news came out, it was kind of like, oh, gee, didn't see that coming, she says sarcastically. um, but, and like, I don't mean to downplay the importance of those astronauts there. They are not involved in this nonsense that's going on. They are probably not for what's going on. That their leader, I don't know, but we're not sure. I don't know. But I do think it's poker. However, if they do leave, we'll figure it out. Not too worried.
Like, the majority of the cosmonauts actually come from the Russian military. So over the last little while, there've been a couple of photos and a couple of moments where it's just like, I think the rest of the world was kind of cringing. I'm not sure again if it's that there's a chain of command or in this because there is sort of a integral patriotism into what they're doing. But I think there've been a few moments where just like, all right. And so
it's
now
hard to know.
The ISS is not a big place. And if you've got people from all around the world, and then you've got 3 or 4 people there who folks are kind of like, I actually don't want to be beside this person in an emergency. Like, even if they do go, is it that much of a loss?
Exactly.
There are lots of nations right now, China, India, and others who are they're rocking it with their space programs. And this actually could be the olive branch to some nations around the world to sort of bring them into an international space community, which the ISS was back in the last few decades. So it's kind of curious to think about that maybe while this did its job pre-Putin, and probably will have something that will do its job post-Putin with Russia, the ISS without the Russians, I don't see it as a bad thing.
I mean, it's sad, but if they don't want to be there, bye. I mean, and the thing is, like, it's sad from the point of view that this was an olive branch to peace, after the Cold War, and there'd always been a hot sort of competition between the United States and the USSR back at the birth of space programs, and this was kind of a way of uniting symbolically or what have you. But if they don't want to be there anymore, then there's other people that can be involved, and like Tasia said, we'll figure it out. North America will figure it out. Western countries will figure it out. So
I wonder, are they expecting sort of the plaintive, no, please don't go? I feel
that's
like
what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I feel like Willy Wonka here, like, no, stop, don't.
Right?
Or just be like it's not me, it's you.
What is this? Box of chocolates? Yeah, don't let the door hit you. Yeah, fair. Okay, so speaking of things in space that might kill you, I think that's a good segue. We need to talk about space junk because this has come up a couple of times, but we've got a story here from NextWeb taking a look at
actual photo.
Yes. This is going to suck. So farmers found big chunks of metal from a SpaceX Crew 1 trunk in a remote paddock in rural Australia. And, I think they certainly weren't sheepish about talking about it. But really, it's kind of curious to think about. So rocket debris up to 3 meters long, 20 to 30 kilograms each. Something like this, from the top of a building will kill you. Something like this from space will tend to obliterate chunks of stuff going on all around you. So did you guys ever see the show Dead Like Me?
No.
No, it was shot here in Vancouver, and it was about a young woman named Georgia who was killed by a toilet seat from the deorbiting space station Mir. See, this all ties in. And so she goes on to become a Grim Reaper, which I think is it's a great job if you can get it. So what is space junk and why is it a problem? So this is the close-up on our space junk here. We're seeing more and more of this stuff pop up. When we've looked at even Elon Musk's Starlink, when you're populating certain parts of space with all of these satellites, and even as these satellites are decommissioned, We're seeing right now, what are they saying? 27,000 pieces of orbital debris. This is legacy tech. Abandoned rocket bodies. We've got so many more nations again going up into space that without deorbiting plans for these things as they go up, they essentially just go into orbit, where that orbit can be stable, but it can also start to decay. And when it starts to decay, it can come down just about anywhere. And I think the Russians were actually deorbiting a satellite again earlier this year, and had said that they were basically threatening to deorbit it into populated areas, which takes you from like nation state to space terrorist at that point. That's a bit much. So
Were they also shooting stuff? Am I remembering that correct? They were blowing up stuff?
Yeah, so basically they were looking at, in the name of clearing space debris, they were looking at essentially using kinetic weapons, which is another way to say, hard things that we throw at other things in a hard fashion until those things get destroyed. It's a very technical. They were basically looking at using that to, one, possibly knock a destabilized orbit back into stable orbit, knock it, into an orbit that exits our orbit. But really, that could also be used to destroy actual functioning satellites. This is something that we looked at back in the 80s with the Star Wars program, right, which was Ronald Reagan's program to possibly use space-based munitions. And that's everything from literally just dropping like massive iron rods from outer space, which they hit the planet, and you're looking at possibly an extinction level event. It's all very dystopian. But we're saying here, Canadian academics in Nature Astronomy, so they said a 10% chance in one or more casualties due to flying debris hitting a person over a decade. Those are not good odds. I really don't want to be that person. So the problem is obviously that space is, doesn't belong to any of us. It kind of belongs to all of us. So this is kind of where we're at. We've had people hit by space debris. Lottie Williams was hit by flaming space debris in Oklahoma. First, no word on if she's managed to get back to her home planet of Krypton, but really. And so we're starting to track this stuff down. So Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple, launched Privateer, which is, I believe, actually one of the Wing Commander games. I think it was the one after the one that Mark Hamill was in. So I think this is all coming full circle as well.
I thought it was a pirate video game, but
Yeah, so it was Wing Commander Privateer, right? And then there was wasn't there? There was one from Microsoft, Privateer.
Yes.
It was the first one where you used a mouse and keyboard instead of a joystick. People are all up in arms about that. So that's our part of our space junk can kill you. So we got some articles here that we'll put into the show notes where you can calculate your chance of being obliterated by space junk. But this has a special place in my heart. This is an Internet of Things device that will notify you an hour before an Earth-obliterating supernova.
Oh, wow.
This is a gift. You understand? Just mark that in your calendars when the birthday rolls around. This is a gift.
Nothing says I love you like
I want to save your life.
So let's take a look at this website. So what is it? Exaluminal IoT device that will let you know when a supernova is going to happen an hour before it happens. You plug it into a wall outlet, and it receives a signal from the Exaluminal service, which will sound an alarm of the Earth's impending doom. So these are the Exaluminal detectors, and this is the Exaluminal device. Plain, simple, minimal, and we've got a little green sun on there, which I think probably goes red when we're about to die. So the fascinating thing here is that, light travels at the speed of light, but also when we're looking at it, essentially can be delayed but as it passes through matter. Cool. Yeah. Neutrinos don't. And so this detects massive surges in neutrinos that are coming our way. And there are detectors all around the Earth that already detect neutrinos. So this particular device, basically when it detects a surge of a sufficient level that tells you that we're probably done for, you have an hour to live, will sound an alarm. And, I think we've seen a number of movies over the last little while that have given us the idea of what would you do with your last days. With climate change, I think we might also be living that right now. So there's an optimistic probability. So yeah, that's kind of where we are with the Exaluminal. I'm not sure how much this. So follow our Twitter for more updates, more information. So we don't have a price for this, I think, priceless service. But that's where we are with the Exaluminal.
You only need one.
Yes.
Well,
Well, I suppose you need one. See, I maybe would have one for work and one for home. The places where I am frequently, because you wouldn't want to be caught without your Exaluminal. So,
I don't think you'll need to replace it.
No,
Single use.
It's a bad business model, you know?
Yeah, exactly. They're going to go bankrupt. Who came up with the pitch?
With any luck, they do, and we're still around to talk about it. So there is that. So the last story that we have for you here, in space. Actually, one of the last two stories in space. We have engineers in Japan are building an artificial gravity habitat on the moon by 2050, and so this basically, we're looking at solving gravity on world and off world. And these folks here essentially are looking at creating artificial gravity on the moon by using an Earth. Now, this is kind of curious because already having some gravity there actually helps solve the problem of it. But when we're looking at low gravity and no gravity, you look at things like bone loss, and having to keep up your physique becomes much more difficult. So this basically allows people to essentially simulate Earth's gravity while on the moon, and actually could be a stepping stone to artificial gravity when we are in space. So kind of a handy thing here. Asking you this. If you were given the choice to live in a moon orbiting space station or a 170 kilometer long city, Arabia, which would you choose? I ask because we have the story that we're dubbing "The Line Must Be Drawn Here" in honor of Star Trek First Contact. Saudi Arabia has unveiled plans for a 170 kilometer long city, and they're calling it The Line. So this is let's take a quick look here. We'll kill the volume, but they're essentially saying that this city here, laid out in a more linear fashion, would give them the ability to consolidate certain resources, live vertically. Is it just me, or does this seem like the opening to a Judge Dredd movie?
I was just about to say, this is totally Judge Dredd.
This is Mega City 1.
Mega City 1, yeah.
And, organized in 3 dimensions. And so when we think to most of our science fiction right now, if you look at Star Wars movies, if you look at Judge Dredd, if you look at The Fifth Element, we frequently see that we have these beautiful vertical cities that are wonderful near the top and an absolute nightmare near the bottom. Looking at this, it looks like they're choosing to use translucent walls, so you don't end up with the pits that you tend to get in a lot of cities here. But this is a city that is 200 meters wide, so you can walk from left to right pretty darn quickly. Usain Bolt could actually do it in just under 20 seconds, which is nice. But packed with automation, temperate climate, because Saudi Arabia is known for that, and 100% renewable energy. It's fascinating to see this because this is another piece coming out of Saudi Arabia recently, in addition to things like their golf tournaments and so on, that I think are looking to reform their reputation in the face of the world. So 40% of the world accessible within 6 hours, the heart of the trade routes. Again, the breadbasket of the world was here at one point, and the heart of humanity was here at one point. So I will throw it out to you. Looking at The Line, would you live here?
If it's my choice is that or the moon,
Yes.
I would live there on The Line. Listen, there's gravity. As far as I know, there's working toilets and clean water. I can have good internet. I'm 6 hours to another major hub. I'm picking the line. Just
Okay.
just my preference. I'm
No,
not
no,
much of a camper, and I feel like mooning would be more of like a camping vibe for me.
fair,
I
fair.
want
No,
all my necessities taken care of. But I have a weird
so
question. Wait, before Will
yes.
answers. So for those that couldn't see the video, it almost looks like they're making like big giant reflective walls on either end of this huge line, so it looks almost like invisible from afar or whatever, like it's just reflecting the natural habitat. Here's my question. Like, do you go like outside of that? Like, are there little doors in the walls, or like are you stuck inside the line?
That's
You
a
know what I
great
mean?
question, because the very first Judge Dredd movie, I think it was Jürgen Prochnow was the one who played the original judge, and he was exiled from Mega City One and sent outside. And
See?
outside the wall was hell, right?
That's what I'm
So it's sort of
saying.
a
There's no
yeah.
bathrooms out there. There's no shade.
Well, and famously, Saudi Arabia is not the most progressive of
No.
environments. So you say the wrong thing, you wear the wrong thing, you do the wrong thing, you are the wrong thing. You might be walking away from the line.
Yeah.
It's true.
Look, I might be biased, but the other thing that's in common with all those fictions that you talked about with megacities, even if you want to talk about Coruscant on in Star Wars, um, is it tends to have a dystopian vibe to it. Even Coruscant, which is the city planet on Star Wars, had this underbelly, this pit, this lower dregs region where scum and villainy hung out. And Judge Dredd is very much a dystopian piece of fiction, and that does not work out well for the megacities. So it does give me a lot of vibes. There's a lot of questions here about, like you say, is there a difference between the top floors and the bottom floors? It's an
Yeah, the
easy way
view.
to classify people. So sorry.
The view.
The view, but then with the view comes money and class and all sorts of other problems. Again, reading too much dystopian fiction, but yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of problems with it. I don't think consolidating can have a lot of pluses, but it can have a lot of minuses as well. So I'm not exactly sure. For example, you make yourself a good target. If one thing goes down, it all goes down. It's a waste of space to a certain extent because you're just doing a lot of space this way, but what about on either side of the line? So I mean, like Tasia says, in terms of a viable thing that could happen now, it's probably something I prefer to live in rather than camping in space. Now, but if you take it to the full extreme, I would love something, Gray and Tasia, like in Mass Effect, where there's a massive space station around a planet or a sun or something like that. And it's almost like a ring world. Now we're talking very, very science fiction, very, very in the future. But I love that sort of station on Mass Effect where it's. Do you know what I'm?
The Citadel.
Citadel, yes.
Yes.
So
Yep.
I love that kind of vibe, but is that viable anytime soon? No.
Maybe we can
Well,
just
it's,
go
it's interesting.
visit the line.
Yes. There got to be a hotel.
So
I'm
So
sure.
this
I'm sure.
this was the Citadel in Mass Effect. Basically this was a giant space station that was abandoned, that humanity and other species found, and they found the mass relays that got them back and forth between different places. You were also talking a little bit about something that can be classified as a Dyson Sphere.
Dyson Sphere I remember from Star Trek.
Specifically the episode Relics, featuring
Yes.
James Doohan, where he came back because he was trapped in a pattern buffer because his ship was stuck inside the Dyson Sphere, or just outside the Dyson Sphere. So yeah, basically the idea here is that the Dyson Sphere, could be, in this case, large orbiting panels, and it has a star at the center of it. In some cases, it's enclosed, encapsulated. The Arthur C. Clarke novel Rendezvous with Rama essentially was a very similar thing, which was this large, almost space arc that was going through various systems. And as it came close to the sun, it would heat up, warm up, melt all of the ice inside, and it was basically a giant cylinder, which then began to rotate, gave you artificial gravity towards the center of it, and towards the poles it did not, and essentially came into our system and then left, leading to the sequel Rama 2. Which happens, I think, 20 or 30 years later. But really, really neat stuff. And the idea here of being able to basically take our own environment and then build something that kind of encapsulates it so that we're on the inside and space is on the outside, as opposed to kind of where we are right now, which is space is pushing in on us and we're pushing out on it. Kind of gives you a little bit more control. So yeah, this is popularized by Freeman Dyson back in the 1960 paper, Search for Artificial Stellar Sources of Infrared Radiation. Neat stuff. Not James Dyson, famous for his vacuums. So yeah, so given between that, so Will, you're landing where? You're saying
I guess it depends on how sci-fi we get. If we're talking near future, I'd do the line.
Like right now.
If we're talking about right now, the line. If we're talking sci-fi 1,000 years from now, Dyson Sphere.
Well, I mean, that said, the line's not going to be a thing until 2045. So in 20 years' time, how much progress would we make? And would we be able to get away with not using Hold the Line as the theme song for this new town? Love is not always on time. Okay, all right, so we got currently the line, future space. I'm going to go, I'd rather live on the moon either way, mostly because, again, moon boots. Just 1/6 gravity, hard to beat. I really don't do well in the heat. They say temperate climate. Not buying it. So
I would never go outside.
Will, I guess we're getting penthouses near each other.
Whoop whoop.
This is on the bottom level. Anyway, so before we get into our next story and thinking of new homes that we want to live in, I want to ask you two, given the last 2 years of working from home, what do you think about it? What's something that you can say you've learned? Like what has changed about how you're working from home? What have you learned about working from home? For me, I know it's things that we validated quite often. That email could have been an instant message. That web meeting could have been an email, and that email, well, that's kind of where I am. Is just getting to the point. The instant messaging, Slack, and so on. And even now, I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm getting emails again, where I'm like, this didn't require a full email. You could have just sent me a message on Slack. So what have you two learned? Will, what have you learned?
I think for me, the biggest struggle, and that took months, was to find a space that worked for me. And basically sort of changing our lifestyle, especially in Vancouver, where, our home is our home. I wasn't doing any work in my home. I'd work off my couch if I was just doing freelance projects or funsy things. But to actually have a proper workspace, I had to buy a desk and move stuff around and fit stuff to the environment. And that really took about 6 months. And, part of the reason was we were never sure how long we were going to be here doing this.
It's only going to be 6 weeks.
It's only going to be 6 weeks. So it's like, do I invest in furniture? Do I bother moving everything out? Like, what are we going to do here? So, and I think the other challenge has been that, none of us bought our houses or got apartments or rented or what have you with the idea of having working spaces for every adult and space for kids to do school and all that kind of stuff. So great.
You're speaking my truth.
Yeah, speaking the truth. So it was finding an environment for me and my wife to actually both have offices, because we were both working from home, but we never bought a place even with the idea of having any offices, let alone 2 offices.
Or being around each other 24/7.
Or being around each other 24/7. So there's also the little things of Could you be quiet? I am going to go into a very important meeting. Stop having coffee chat with your coworkers, or what? Or could you take that downstairs or close the door? But the other funny thing is we had a older cat when this all first happened, and she made up her own schedule. She ate at random times. She no longer fit any kind of schedule. And so my wife would be on a Zoom meeting and she'd have to put on mute because the cat was howling behind her for food. And I'd have to sneak in and cover my face so I didn't show up on the camera and just toss a bowl of food. So the cat would shut up. So she just texted me while she was in her meeting, and I'd just have to sneak in. But yeah, that's kind of the big thing for me is space. You know, all the other stuff, I think you learn Zoom etiquette and things like that. But I think space was the big challenge.
That one?
Yeah.
That one.
You're still on mute.
Yeah.
You're muted.
Yeah. No,
You're muted.
Oh, I had a great story where someone thought they were muted and screamed at their spouse. Was like throwing straight F-bombs.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's
where the space bar for Zoom for a while there was kind of the key thing, right? You press the space bar to unmute and then you're good.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. Tasia, any learnings from working from home? Anything that's become endemic to what you do?
I realize I'm one of those people that's more productive when others aren't around. So like, the internet is very distracting to me, yes. But that was always there as a distraction. And now when like others aren't just there to like walk up to a desk and start speaking to me when I'm in the middle of an edit, I get so much more done in a quicker amount of time. So, but it also has made me appreciate when I do go into an office setting, when I go to see my clients, it's like I enjoy it more now to like interact and have that human to human connection in person again. Whereas before, I think I was just kind of taking it for granted and it was kind of annoying and I didn't want to go there. And now it's like, oh, this is nice when the couple times, you know, I have to go in and see a client or do this, but then 95% of my work is in my little office. I'm also enjoying it a lot more now because Brett and I shared this space for like over a year and a half and you could reach out and touch. And I'm telling you, like, you guys know, because with editing or like he would be on a call, I couldn't even hear my audio track. I would have to do a call or video. He would have to pack up and leave the room, or like one of us would have to leave for the other person to be on a call. And I was like, what you're saying, Will, like this house was not designed for this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we sold $1 million home to move elsewhere because it was one big open room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were never meant to be together that often. You know, when the pandemic started, I was spinning fire once a week. I was DJing fairly often. Ray had that set that she was doing. And so we weren't here all that often together. And when we were, enjoy the time together. But suddenly it became, you're here all the time and I'm here all the time. And I think out of the two of us, I am far more annoying. Like I recognize a video game player and a loud typer, and I laugh really loudly at YouTube videos when I've got my headphones on, and I'm just a pain in the ass to be around. So
you're like, we gotta get out.
Now we've got doors and walls.
Yeah.
And things are great. So yeah, it's been a thing. So on that note, we got a story from our friends over at The Verge. Now, how I learned to stop worrying and love the work from home. And, you know, there are some really great ideas in here. Taking a walk every day, shutting down your computer. This is actually a key one for me. You know, shutting it down at the end of the day, one thing does a few things. You end up saving all of your work. Right? You can, with macOS, you can open up back exactly where you were, so that's fine. But it does also mean that you're not spending all that extra time trying to get the last little bit of work in. Sometimes it's really great to walk away. I'm also really using the steps feature in iOS and in macOS, basically saying, you know, do not disturb, or I'm at work, or I'm, you know, doing personal stuff. And for people who are on iMessage, they'll see that you're doing that if you allow them to see that, so they know why you're not responding to them. It's tough because I've got a lot of friends who are on Signal, And I really wish that this synced there so that you can see, like, one, I haven't read your message, but two, here's the reason why. I was voicing a puppet video today for must have been 5 hours to do all of the ADR and have it line up. And I had a lot of people message me during the day, and I had a long weekend, and it was just tough and tiring. And so, yeah, not being able to respond to people and also them not having the reason was a little on the challenging side. But, there's some really great stuff. You're right, what I'm doing, to the writer of The Verge, neither do the rest of us. It's fine. But that's a great article. We hope you'll actually get to check it out on The Verge. So as we kind of head into our next segment here, a few things about working from home and the life of working from home. We've got a great little story from The Verge again about how Insta360's Link webcam is the hardware answer to Apple's center stage. So this is kind of a cute piece of hardware that basically uses the same type of things that you'd see on robotic gimbals. So they say Pocket 2 action camera, and essentially at $300, this is right up against the Opal C1, which is actually the webcam that I'm using right now. And you might have noticed earlier I was kind of sitting there wondering why I was a little bit out of focus. It's because I wasn't running the Opal software, which when I turned it on, it actually flashed over to my FaceTime cam so you could see my Destiny collection on the wall. But now that I've turned it on, you can see that the camera is actually got really great color balance. It's got really great autofocus. I've been very impressed with this. This is actually my pick of the week, so we'll go back to it. But this is kind of it's kind of a neat camera because it will follow you around as you move around, which, if you've got an Apple device that does center stage, will do. So asking you two, do you currently have Apple devices that use center stage, iPads or Macs that use it?
Well, I'm on a really old iPad. Like, so old. Well, it's not. It's like 4 years old, but still, that's very old in the tech world.
That's old enough to not have it. Yeah.
It's yeah. But the thing that I don't like, for me as an everyday driver, I like my Logitech StreamCam. That was a recommendation from you originally, Gray, and that's all I need. I don't want something that follows me around.
It seems to be a very
if I'm working on a video and I need that, maybe, but for everyday stuff, I just don't see me needing that feature at all.
Well, so this is the thing, it's kind of aimed at content creators, but it's aimed at very specific content creators, which is I am standing in a wider stage where I'm going to move around or going to have multiple people. I have not actually found center stage to be a helpful feature. It always seems to kind of put me in a part of the frame that I don't want to be in. And as I'm moving around, it gets to weird angles and things. And I'm like, you are the least intelligent cameraman that I've ever worked with. And that's saying something. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, cool, great. But for $300, I'd rather have the better picture quality than the...
Agreed.
Yeah. So interesting. So that's kind of where we are on that. If you had a feature that you could have in a webcam that you don't have right now, what would it be? Good question, right? Because the stream cam is kind of nice. It does a couple of things. It does the vertical presentation, which you can do, which I've never used. I thought I would, but I'm not doing as many as the TikToks as I thought I would. I've done positively none of them.
Same.
What are webcams missing right now?
I mean, I guess maybe some better built-in matting or green screening. I mean, that's software based, but something that works a little bit more consistently. So you don't need a green screen or anything like that. But that's kind of talking pie in the sky here. But that kind of thing, because sometimes it can be weird about picking, blurring stuff out and things like that, and those features are probably coming.
Well, so Elgato's
I think we're just overthinking it.
Elgato's actually released a new version of their webcam software, which it's actually integrated with NVIDIA's software panel, where they do far better green screen removal. And I mean, I do have a green screen back here. I've got nice lighting, and I have found actually where the stream cam did struggle a little bit you know, this camera's almost twice the price, but the Opal is not. And I'm still using my stream cam because I'm actually going to be using that for my top-down videos of things like unboxings. So for the 2 years that we had it, I think the stream cam was and continues to be almost top of the heap. So, all right, well, let me ask you this. You know, Tasha, you said you're not much for camping, but if you had to go off-grid, so Daisy, sorry, I almost lost myself there. Are we still here? Yes, we are.
Yep.
Okay, good. It's just Brave wanted to head off somewhere. If you had to go camping, how would a 1,200 watt solar generator kit feel? $3,600 US, 90 pounds, with 2 solar panels. This thing basically sort of obviates the need for a gas generator.
Wow.
Not a replacement for gas powered generators, but in the right conditions could be. And this gives you all of the ports, all of the time. You can, we checked, run a Nespresso coffee maker on this, which sounds ridiculous. While I was camping at Base Coast this year, someone walked over and says, "Does anyone have a solar generator capable of powering 1,200 watts?" And why? Because he wanted to use his Nespresso. But not only did he want to use his Nespresso, he wanted to use his water as well because, and I quote, "real water is poison."
Ooh.
Oh,
okay.
boy.
There was a story there he was anxious to tell us. None of us was interested. But this would do it.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
Don't
ask. Don't ask.
So essentially, both of these solar panels, when they're placed precisely at a 90-degree angle to the sun, gave 351 watts of power, which I've got a smaller solar battery from a different company, and I'm using I can't remember, it's Go Panel or something like that. I'm using one of their 100 watt panels, which kept my system charged for multiple days, no downtime, almost no loss of power. But this right here means that you could possibly go off grid. Would you?
That's cool.
I'm just saying that dog does not look impressed.
I was just gonna say, does that let you puppy come with him? I think it's cool for people that are heavy campers. Do you know what I mean? That are all the time going camping to like the backwoods where there's no power hookups. There's what I'm saying. So I think that's really cool if we can just get the price point down to something that's reasonable for people.
Well, I've got to admit the $3,600 here is down almost, I think, 60% from what this was when I looked at something similar even about 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the van life is kind of calling to me. A friend of mine, Jason, has kitted out a Ford Econoline. It's got custom milled panels, everything kind of, the coolers under here, everything pulls out over there. It's quite neat. But I think the last piece of the puzzle then just becomes that: how do I run all of this stuff on a day-to-day basis? And this is one of those options. So, all right. So for serious campers, that's the question. So adding on to that, if you've been outside in Scottsdale, Arizona, most of the year, or BC for the last 5 or 6 days, the questions probably come up: should you wear white or hot days? So Tasha, as our resident expert on climates that people probably shouldn't live in, what is your guidance on this before we get into the science?
You want to know what's crazy? I've always thought about this because when I'm in like jeans or dark pants, I'm always like, and I don't know if it's a mental thing that it just feels so much hotter or if it actually is so much hotter. But my advice, and this is like expert scientific advice, is stay inside.
Yeah.
It's hot.
So wear roofing is what you're saying. Is that that's the
exactly choice. A little aircon, a little roof. We're good to go.
So basically, we're taking a look here, and so they've done a somewhat scientific review. So this is you got your white to black, left to right, and so you got white, red, looks like blue, gray, green, dark blue, royal blue, I don't know, and black. And you can see here that the black t-shirt measures at 131 degrees Fahrenheit, and the white one was 111 degrees. But that's again things that you sort of started to see. The one thing that I would say as well is that the actual material does
Mm-hmm.
make a difference,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when we're looking at the reflective nature of certain materials, they'll actually reflect more heat than they will absorb it. So the question, obviously has not been answered based on color, but based on color and other mitigating factors. And to your point, Tasia, I think the roof over your head is probably going to be the safest one of all. So,
It's
that's that.
aircon to aircon, or
Um,
aircon to pool.
and an umbrella, you joke, but a
Yes,
parasol actually is an incredibly efficient way of staying
it's
safe.
true.
We have a couple of them here. We've got some that are nylon. We've got some that are paper. And I'm not talking umbrellas. I'm talking parasols. They're designed to both look fancy and be comfortable. So recommending that. There are no Amazon links in the show notes because this is just our gift to you. Last but not least, and we've actually started to see this with a few of the things that we use around the house. The Switch console. Nintendo warns gamers don't play Switch amid heat waves. Can overheat and play in environments over 95 degrees Fahrenheit, 35 degrees Celsius. We've seen it over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. We hit 33 degrees here in Vancouver. So we've actually seen like a number of different pieces of hardware that say that usually it's around 40 degrees. That they say this is temperature by which 40 degrees centigrade, pardon me, as far as heat goes, that things will no longer um, do well in temperatures past that. But have you? I remember actually at one point had my iPhone on the dash of my car that is being used as a GPS, and it heated up to the point where I got the yellow triangle that said "Cool this sucker off" because it'd be melting.
Yeah.
So have you had any electronics that have done this? Either of you?
Oh, I
Not
have
electronics.
outside here. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I
And
first moved here to the desert, friends of Brett would tell me that, oh yeah, like your phone will overheat and like just shut down. And I was like, what are you talking about? You're funny. It's happened a couple times. Even if it's like in the summer here, obviously, but like even if it's in the shade, if it just gets too hot, it'll start as a triangle, or sometimes it just completely shuts off. So,
Wow.
but the interesting thing with this is like, is anybody like using these devices in a non-air conditioned spot where like, because whose house would get that hot? I mean, I know not everybody's air conditioning, so it gets like warm inside, but that's just, and I guess with it being on, it would be using, that creates some heat too. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. But I've had stuff shut down. It's wild.
So, Will, you were saying?
Oh, I was just going to say for technology, I've never had anything, but I was in Vegas in August one time. My friend's flip flops melted on the street. That was interesting.
Why does anyone live there? The wind is hot.
I know. It was cheap to go in August. Can you believe it?
I was gonna say,
Was it flip flop
right
melting,
now,
Steve?
Yeah, flip flop melting heat.
you
So-
could get a top-notch hotel.
Well, it's like you're sticking. It's like as you're going down the boulevard.
I will say this: if you do own an iPhone, which Tasia, I know you don't right now, but if you do own an iPhone, the 12 and 13, Razer has released the Phone Cooler Chroma, a MagSafe compatible smartphone cooling technology, which is powered by USB-C, or I think it might have a battery. I really don't know. In any case, you can actually cool your phone off. Now, this is designed for high performance games like PUBG or that's really the only one I know people play. Fortnite. There's the other one. I'm sorry, I don't play the mobile games, but this one here will do it for you. So if we're starting to have a spate of phone shutdowns, they do also have a universal clamp version. So, Tasia, for your Pixel, you got that going.
I was just gonna say the Pixel 6a. Some people have complained it's overheating. So there you go.
Okay. Well, we've got you covered. Excellent. That ends our segment. That side will kill you too. So looking at our picks of the week as we slide into home base here. Will, let me just bring this up here.
Sure.
So you have the ILM documentary. So tell us a little bit more about this.
Well, this is this is a great series on Disney Plus. I think it's 6 episodes. And they did a similar one on Imagineering or Imagineers, which are the people who help make the magic in Disney parks and such. This one is focused on Industrial Light and Magic, the special effects studio that was sort of funded and created masterminds by George Lucas for Star Wars. Really interesting, a deep dive. The first, I guess, 2 or 3 episodes are just basically on Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, and then we start getting into some more of the stuff that they do. But basically, some of the groundbreaking technologies they came up with. Where the special effects, to believe this, that was basically resurrecting special effects when they started ILM and what the industry was like. It's just very fascinating. If you're a film nerd or a film geek or just like to know how things are done, there's some really interesting behind the scenes stories and deep dives into technologies.
Very cool stuff. It's one of the things I've always loved about the original Star Wars, the Holy Trilogy, was just how dirty things looked. And it's I think one of the things that was missing from the prequels, and just kind of looking back on this, it makes me want to watch it, because looking at those original special effects tests was kind of neat. So very cool stuff. So that's available on
Disney Plus, and it's a 6 episode series, I believe.
Yeah, excellent. So my pick of the week is actually a hardware piece. I've got a couple of things I'm going to talk about over the next little while. One of which being I bought myself a new Verge wallet, and the Playdate finally came in, so we'll talk about that next week.
Oh, nice.
But what I'm talking about right now is the Opal C1, the first professional webcam by which I have to pay a salary of $60,000 a year. I'm kidding. So this actually, it's a fascinating piece of tech, because it's small. Like, this is basically the size of an old pack of Double Mint or Juicy Fruit. It's yay big, about yay tall, about yay wide, about yay thick, and the back of it is actually a heatsink, because it is using a massive processor in here, 4K webcam, DSLR quality, and like I said, I was a little puzzled earlier at the beginning of the show, because I was like, this isn't quite what I'm used to. And then I realized that I shut down the software earlier today because I was doing some work in Premiere and just wanted everything else out of the way. So it was sort of interesting to see, but it's got great color, I find. And it's really doing a really great job of just everything that I want it to do. So I'm going to be shooting some more video on this, but we'll be chatting with you guys every week on this. Fascinating thing about this, it is not available to the general public. You have to reserve a spot in a private invite-only beta. I received one email from them when I signed up about 6 months ago. I received another email from them when I was available, and I was given a 72-hour window to buy it. Talk about pressure tactics. I was in a heartbeat. So I came back to this website, bought with invite. I bought the white one because I just think it's pretty. And very pleased with that. So that is the Opal C webcam. Going forward from that, we've got some of our projects this week. Will, you're going to tell us a little bit about your latest looper.
Yeah. So my new looper, I think, as you guys know, I have some sort of family issues recently, just with some health of some family members, and this was sort of a bit of an outlet while I was going through that. So these are mostly songs or loops that I made while family member was in the hospital, and so it's a little bit different, a little bit darker, but as I say in the write up for this looper, it's somewhat hopeful in a way. So yeah, for me it was very much cathartic. But yeah, people seem to like it, and I'm really happy with how it turned out.
I'm very glad things are turning out the way that they are. So that's great. I'm excited to give this a listen. So Tasia, you have a new piece for us as well. You got your.
I do. It's my first video in a 2-part series on the Google Pixel 6a. So this one that was out on Thursday is like the full Pixel 6a review. So we're running through all the tech specs and the processor and hardware and software and all kinds of stuff. And then the one I'm working on for this week, that's coming out this Thursday, is specific Pixel 6a camera features. So doing my usual of running through what I think of the camera and stuff like that, and what sets it apart from other, maybe more modest budget, quote unquote, friendly phones. So I'm trying to be, in these two, I'm trying to be more, you know, like when the Pixel 6 Pro came out, I literally asked Google to marry me in one of my videos. So I'm trying to be a
little more objective. Let's get engaged objective and more like
a little
maybe I'll see you again next Saturday.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. Okay. But I think I'm doing a good job on it while still having a lot of fun. I love testing these devices, and you know, it's so fun. So I'm glad people seem to like them, but you know, my poor little iPhone is sitting here like, what about me?
Like, shh,
sweet girl, I'll be back. Don't worry, sweet girl.
I can never give you up.
Only dreams.
No, I could never give you up.
So just to go back to this, Will, people can find your stuff at...
Well, at TableBeats or Tableless.net, and I go under the alias Molotov.
Excellent. And Tasia, they can find your stuff at...
You can just go to youtube.com/Tasia Custodi.
Excellent. The last thing that I have, it's not uploaded yet, but it will be uploaded. Last Friday, I had the opportunity and the privilege to DJ for aging gay and lesbian and bisexual seniors. And so this was something called Aging with Pride. It was really delightful. They were a wonderful crowd. And there was one woman in the audience who was rocking out hard, and then during the parade walked up and was like, "You were that DJ?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "I had a lot of fun." So that will be up on mixcloud.com/grayis3po, as you can see up at the top here. So that'll be up there later this week. So that brings us to the end of our show. I just wanted to remind everybody that you can find us at momentous.tv, facebook.com/momentous.tv, twitter.com/momentous.tv, instagram.com/momentous.tv, and on YouTube at youtube.com/tjmjutra, and look for the Momentous playlists. So that's where everything is. Friends, it's been really great chatting with you. This made my week so much better and so much more fun. So thank you for taking the time. It's been good talking to the both of you. For those of you out there who are watching, thanks so much. If you haven't subscribed or liked, please do both of those. We will see you next week. We hope that your week is truly momentous.
Momentous.